On this episode of Urban U, we highlight the Masters of Arts in Museum Studies program offered by CUNY in collaboration with the New York Historical Society, the new Lehman Nursing Education Center addressing the widespread medical staff shortages and shaping the future of nursing with advanced facilities and expert training, CUNY computer science departments using AI to research massive datasets for social causes, and in honor of Memorial Day, a story about the New York Revolutionary Trail and CUNY people during the Civil War when our university was known as the Free Academy. That and more, welcome to Urban U.
Both of these organizations coming together really benefits the students in a unique way because not only are they part of the fabric of New York as individual institutions, but they each bring their own expertise to the program. One of the great things about this program is we're not just a conduit for curators, we're not just a conduit for museum educators. We make sure that all of our students are well-rounded so that they can go on to a variety of cultural institutions and do the jobs they want. We also have students who have gone on to do PhDs in history, who have gone on to work in development in social justice environments. So not just necessarily the museum world, they're taking this knowledge and applying it into a wide variety of opportunities for them.
What we've tried to do with this program is show the myriad ways that people work in museums, be it in education, in public programming, in other aspects of reaching out to the public. Finance, too, very important aspect of the museum operation. We needed to broaden the way that people learn about museums and are trained to work in museums, and broaden the constituencies, which would only improve the museum project writ large.
We want as many of our students out in the work world as possible. A student can complete at a reasonable pace because we have to keep in mind that most of our students, if not all of our students, are working adults. The thing that's really beneficial for our students is if their work gets busy or their life gets busy, because they are adults, they have adult issues, they can slow down or speed up the program as they see fit. So the flexibility of the program is one of its real benefits for our student body.
I've always had an interest in history and in the way that art and history can be communicated to the public. When I found this program and discovered that it was a partnership between the New York Historical Society and CUNY, two institutions that I really value, it immediately sort of rose to the top for me as something that I was interested in pursuing. The flexibility of the program, the ability to do it around my work. I travel a lot for work. My schedule is sort of irregular. And so the ability to integrate this program in a way that can fit inside of the crevices that I have in my existing professional adult life really made it possible for me.
Something like 60% of our students are over the age of 25. So we're talking about people who have other obligations and who couldn't engage in a master's program without the flexibility.
The fact that it is completely online is extremely helpful because I also teach students online and in person. Part of what I'm interested in doing is public history. I'm really interested in memorials and how we memorialize the past in particular. My research is on slavery. And so what I hope to do with museums is to be a guest curator for certain aspects of research that I've already worked on and other ways in which museums want to diversify what they teach and the exhibits that they bring. And so I want to be a part of that.
Representation is everything, so we have to make sure that our faculty is well balanced and the experts that we bring in for our students are well balanced and that our student body is well balanced and that all of those things come together to create a dialogue that doesn't go one way. This isn't about necessarily just the conveyance of knowledge from our incredibly experienced faculty who have a tremendous amount to offer, but also from our incoming students who have very different perspectives.
The aspiration is to train new practitioners in the field, and I think that we are making an effort to diversify that field, as I said, but also to teach our students what it's like to really work on the ground.
I'm a sociologist and I study race and culture, and I really wanted to have a better understanding of history in the context of public history and how it's shown. The connection with the New York Historical Society was key because they have collections, and I was really interested in the collections that the Historical Society has, but I also take students to museums in my classroom. So the marriage of the two was more important for me.
As I said, what was really important for me here was the relationship between CUNY and the Historical Society. I think underrepresented communities, including the LGBTQ community, are often poorly archived and documented because they've often been underground histories. And so there are conversations happening now about how do we reclaim those histories, how do we make them manifest in ways that they've been ignored.
When our students come to the capstone, having really finished all their coursework, they are tasked with creating a new museum or cultural institution or cultural initiative. The imagination that is informed by our students' lived experience is something that I would not necessarily have anticipated. So I see that on the ground, that kind of application of lived experience and museum studies expertise happening in the capstone and hopefully in the museum world and beyond as these students seek jobs.
I was born and raised in Nigeria. My dad came here when I was 2 years old, and my mom came when I just turned 5. I came when I just turned 10. When people ask me what my major is, I usually tell them I'm double major in social work and nutrition. And what I usually say is like, whatever happens, I do want to work in a hospital. And the reason why is because growing up, that's what I was taught. You become a doctor or a nurse because that career field is always in demand. And on top of that, I used to watch Dr. House a lot. I'm the president of the Women in Leadership Club. We speak to the Women's Studies Department, and we're kind of like their advocate. We do public speaking workshops, and we do health-focused workshops on the holidays like Thanksgiving. We have a chef come in and teach us how to cook with organic materials. So he's cooking right there while we get to eat what he's cooking. That's one of the benefits. In Nigeria, it's like you either go to school or you stay home. It's one of those two. And that's one thing I love about education here in America compared to Nigeria. You can do whatever you want. You can pursue 3 degrees at the same time, or you could do undergrad and graduate at the same time. Don't be afraid to just go for it.
Before, I thought I wouldn't get the more hands-on stuff that I would need, because in a hospital you definitely need that hands-on experience. And before, yes, we had the hands-on, but now like in a building like this, I feel like extremely more confident.
And this building Shanice is referring to is Lehman College's new $95 million nursing education, research, and practice center, which aims to both expand the program's capacity and prepare nursing students for the workforce with state-of-the-art equipment.
If we were to take a tour right now, you would actually come into a space that had a nursing station, that had numbers of rooms that are around, so students are going to be exposed to regular floor care. They will also be exposed to the ICU settings where patients are a little bit more critical. All of the beds that have mannequins in them have monitors so that faculty members that are actually helping with the simulation piece can actually make changes For example, they can create scenarios where students have to react differently.
If you want to go home, you have to
You
tell me
gotta
something.
take these things off of me.
Which things are you referring to?
I don't know.
You don't.
So the simulations, or the control rooms as they're called, are some of the pieces that really allow the faculty members to be able to simulate those kinds of things that students would see in the classroom.
I love coming in here and feeling like this is almost not a classroom, but it is, because we're surrounded by so much equipment that we can use and we get to learn about.
Before the simulations, we just had some mannequins, and now we have the extra tools that we can use with the screen. If you saw earlier, it tells us the blood pressure, the respiratory rate. We didn't have that before, and that's awesome.
It's worth noting that this equipment isn't exclusive to just hospital settings. In fact, it also encompasses home-based caregiving, which students are exposed to thanks to the mock-up daily living apartments located in the training center.
Lots of nurses are engaged in what is called community health or public health. And so oftentimes we all talk about the social determinants of health. We oftentimes send patients home, and we don't always know what the home looks like, whether or not the home can accommodate a person in a wheelchair, whether or not the home needs to have alterations to the bathroom so that the patient can actually use the bathroom in the most efficient way. So that type of room was designed so that students really could see, if a patient were to go home, these are the things that we actually would want to see.
But just because the nursing faculty at Lehman were able to invest in these resources doesn't mean that the process to get to this point was easy.
This project actually took a long time to come to fruition, as any of these projects, just because money's not always available. You start off with a certain amount of budget, then you've got to go back and forth. All the stakeholders have to approve it. All of those kinds of things took time, but they were determined that it was going to come to this beautiful building. We were really fortunate that the chancellor who was on our side, the board of trustees saw this as a worthy investment. All of those kinds of things became something that brought us to where we are here.
Plus, considering that the city is estimated to have a shortage of nearly 40,000 nurses by 2030, training centers like these are essential, especially since almost half of the nurses that enter the workforce come from CUNY, and 70% of the nursing students at CUNY come from marginalized communities.
As nursing is one of the hot topics across this borough and across actually the state, it's really nice to know that we have an opportunity to be able to add more practitioners to the nursing field, so desperately needed.
It's so important that this nursing center at Lehman exists because we're trying to give back to the community in the Bronx, and we're trying to foster better opportunities for the community and the students here.
For Urban U, I'm Hannah Kavanagh.
AI is already the single most consequential technological commercial advancement since the invention of the internet.
Governor Kathy Hochul wants to make New York competitive in the race to develop AI. She plans to put $250 million into what she calls Empire AI, a consortium of private and public institutions, such as CUNY. CUNY, on its end, plans to invest one of its largest ever donations towards Empire AI by making CUNY a computer science hub with a new Masters of Science program. Ping Ji, the head of CUNY's computer science PhD program, says artificial intelligence is nothing new at CUNY.
My career here in CUNY is 21 years. I'm pretty sure, 10 years before then, AI has been been taught in the CUNY system, because when I joined CUNY in year 2003, artificial intelligence was already a course, PhD level core course offered here.
Computer science is already a bustling major at CUNY schools such as Hunter, and Ping Ji says alumni work with the tech giants.
And we do have alumni working in pretty much every single large tech company that you can name. Facebook, Amazon, Google, Apple, everywhere.
Ping-Ji oversees 100 doctoral professors across 11 campuses and works with computer science chairs across all of CUNY. She says that faculty have already been deep in the AI trenches.
I think it's safe to say that at least 40% of those faculty, have been working on AI, subfields or artificial intelligence itself, in theory of artificial intelligence, or have been applying AI techniques in cross-discipline, area.
Anita Raja has been studying AI since the 1990s. She runs the Distributed Artificial Intelligence Research Lab at Hunter College.
The North Star of the Distributed Artificial Intelligence Research Lab is to seamlessly integrate both human and intelligence software capabilities to solve complex problems.
Raja and her grad students at the lab use AI to navigate massive data sets to predict real-world problems, such as the likelihood of city pipe breakages or preterm births.
You can look at AI systems as super helpers. So we have 10,000 patients, data from a study of 10,000 patients, and over 3,000 features, so information about the patient, so BMI, and what is the blood pressure, what are the blood test results, and they have multiple visits. So the amount of data is significant.
This image is the fake image, but we can use that in the process of training. It will learn how to generate a real sample or something, a fake sample similar to real sample. Okay. It's an example of maybe predicting the distribution.
What we are able to bring with artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms is how are these particular data points or features that we collect. So, we are specifically, for instance, we have looked at certain proteins that can be found in patients early enough, like between 6 and 12 weeks of their pregnancy, that you can predict what's going to happen at 20 weeks.
Raja says the investments in AI at CUNY come as CUNY researchers have already been long working with AI to solve real-world issues.
I'm one among many researchers at CUNY who are interested in doing projects which can help the city, help the country, help the world.
Ping-Ji says the investments headed towards AI in CUNY are needed.
We need, in the artificial intelligence field, we need more faculty across CUNY campuses, as many as possible. And also we need the hardware support, or facility support. This may be, something that I would see this Ampere AI initiative would play a big, positive role.
For Urban U, this is Shannon Ayala.
Still up on Urban U, the Free Academy, later known as the City University of New York, was founded in 1847. That means CUNY has been around so long that many of its early students and faculty were even a part of the American Civil War. Stay tuned for their stories.
It's called the NYC Revolutionary Trail Tour, and it's designed to bring a bit of rich New York City history to tourists and people living in the city.
The story of New York's unexpected lurch into the Revolution begins here, at the Battery, where the cannon outside Fort George once stood guard over New York City's harbor. Until the mid-1700s, New York was just a fledgling outpost in the British Empire.
Peter Angner is the director of the Gotham Center for New York City History at the CUNY Graduate Center and heads up the project. The tour, which is narrated and can be accessed on a smartphone, lasts 90 minutes as participants make their way around Lower Manhattan. But part of the challenge is showing the city's history when so many of the landmarks no longer exist.
So part of the challenge that we have in New York is where the old city was are now a bunch of giant skyscrapers. Right. It's hard when you're coming here as a tourist or as a resident to sort of hear about this history and sort of imagine the way things are and sort of really understand the landscape. So with our project, what you would eventually be able to do is to tap on your phone and actually see the historic landscape of the city, right? And to interact with some of the characters, right? So Alexander Hamilton might be walking by, or Isaac Sears, or any of the sort of characters that we profile.
Over the years, New York has kind of let Boston and Philadelphia lead when it comes to Revolutionary War history. and many think that all of the action was in those two areas. But Engner says nothing could be further from the truth. The problem here is many of the landmarks were destroyed by fires and demolition. The history is here, you just need to know where to look.
Okay, so City Hall Park, you got a lot of stuff here that we can talk about, right?
There's so much going on here. This is one of the major sites of rebellion in the period before the war, before the revolution, right? What we're walking up to here is the Liberty Pole, right? This commemorates 5 poles that actually went up during this period when the city is just beset with constant protest and riots.
The poles were a symbol of protest against British rule.
If you're not thinking about it, it's very easy to miss a lot of the historical sites around New York City. Take, for instance, this one right here. This is marking the British soldiers' barracks just outside of City Hall Park. When we talk about the history of New York City, it's very easy to glorify all of this and say this is great. This is not so great for African Americans, right?
No. What is interesting about this period for African Americans is that we see them lining up on both sides, right? So there are actually upwards of, I think, 8,000 people who joined the rebellion, and they served far longer actually than white Americans in the rebellion, in the Continental Force, right? So actually, they're a huge, huge part of that story, of the founding of the nation, right? And they play key roles.
So another one of the locations here is Federal Hall, okay, right here off Wall Street. What is the significance of it?
So this would have been the capital for the city and the colony during the colonial period, right? And then afterwards, it's reborn when New York becomes the first U.S. capital. So this is where the Congress meets, right? This building gets redesigned, Lafayette comes in and gives us this brand new sort of beautiful building that you see. This is where Washington is sworn in as the first U.S. president.
Trinity Church is also featured on the tour and includes the grave of Alexander Hamilton. You can sample the current app by logging on to the NYC Revolutionary Trail Tour at home or while taking the tour. I'm Mike Gilliam for Urban U.
The Free Academy, what would become CUNY, was founded in 1847, 14 years before the Civil War. And despite its first classes being small, there were initially just 143 students. Several early CUNY members were involved in the bloody conflict. For instance, one prominent Free Academy educated soldier was even a cousin of President Martin Van Buren, James Lyman Van Buren, who left behind a fascinating historical document in his diary, chronicling the famous Battle of the Wilderness, one of the bloodiest engagements of the war, which marked the beginning of the Union's campaign to capture the Confederate capital, Richmond. But like most soldiers, the vast majority lived otherwise normal lives, ordinary people caught up in extraordinary times. Charles Edwin Hema, bookkeeper; Clinton Ethelbert Brush, businessman; Joseph V. Marseille, post office clerk; William Mann, lawyer; Edwin Livingston Owen, lawyer; Henry C. Overin, livery business; Walter Abbey, businessman; John D. Hanrahan, doctor. However, several Free Academy folk do have lengthier tales in the Civil War annals, and not all of them soldiers. Edward Chauncey Marshall was a tutor at the school, not a student. Too old for service, he authored a noteworthy 1863 study on the potential Confederate loyalties of West Point students, a topic of debate in Congress at the time. One Free Academy graduate, Robert Fulton Weir, was the head of a Maryland wartime hospital. After the war, he was considered one of the best surgeons of his time, as an early practitioner of both antiseptic procedures and brain surgery. He later became the president of the American Surgical Association. Another grad, Edward McGlynn, also served in a hospital during the war, but as a priest. He was one of the most progressive and popular clergymen of the era, a staunch advocate for the value of public schools in lieu of parochial schools, reforming tax laws to benefit the poor, and social justice. He would even be excommunicated by the Catholic Church for a time for his politics. Another politically progressive figure of the day, Theodore Tilton. After graduating the Free Academy, Tilton became a nationally prominent newspaper writer and poet in the 1850s. Though he didn't serve, he worked with famous abolitionists Frederick Douglass, John Brown, and Henry Ward Beecher, and his writing was very influential in its anti-slavery stances. Perhaps the most famous Civil War connection, however, is General Alexander S. Webb, from 1869 to 1902, the second president of City College, renamed from the Free Academy in 1866. Webb was one of the most important Union commanders of the war. At the Battle of Gettysburg, Webb, while wounded, led his brigade in halting the famous Pickett's Charge. For his actions, he was awarded the Medal of Honor. Today, there is a statue of him at the Gettysburg battlefield and at City College. And beyond statues, whether national heroes or rank-and-file soldiers, many of these CUNY veterans' graves can still be viewed around New York today. But for final thoughts on the legacy of war and those who lived it, we leave that to Theodore Tilton himself. Fighting on a furious field, once a javelin pierced his shield. Soldiers, with a loud lament, bore him bleeding to his tent. Groaning from his tortured side, pain is hard to bear, he cried, but with patience, day by day, even this shall pass away. For Urban U, I'm Ari Goldberg.
And that's a wrap. For more episode highlights and sneak peeks into our upcoming stories, meet us on our social media platforms. Thank you for watching these stories from the largest university in the nation, the City University of New York.